The House of Representatives has moved closer to repealing the Treaty Making Procedure Act. To reenact the Treaty Making Procedure Act. Now, the bill is sponsored by a member of the House from Delta State and Chairman House Committee on Treaties, Protocols and Agreements, Nicholas Osai. He speaks to TVC News on the merits of the proposed law, which is now skilled second reading.
Any person in our country can challenge it. It won't come into effect in our country because it has not been incorporated into our law to such extent. So, executive will be acting ultra vires to the Constitution, Section 12 of the Constitution. So it will not come into effect. It's not justiciable in our country. So I believe that the executive should do the needful. My committee have written to Mr. President through the Attorney General of Federations to transmit the already signed treaty before the ratification to us to give an approval before such ratification is done. So I believe that any person can take it to court and he will win that court case. Because the parliament is the representative of the people. And the people must have a voice. The executive does not represent Nigerians completely. There is a representative that represents our country, every ethnic groups of this country. They must have a voice on how things are governed, on how such an agreement, of important agreement, that allows some certain level of opportunity for movement of goods and services in African country to trade with. It should be, and he requires people's approval, and that legitimacy of the people's approval has been given and donated to the parliament, and the parliament must, executive must seek approval of the parliament to that extent. I believe that it will not come effect in January, because it will not work in our country. Our laws are different completely from other African countries, whereby when you sign such an agreement, it becomes enforceable in your country, like in Ghana. But in Nigeria, it's not enforceable. Immediately, we assumed the position of being a chairman of this committee. I looked at the law governing, all the statutes governing where the operation of the committee will go ahead. And I've also identified that this treaty is completely in conflict with the Constitution, Section 12. And there was need for me to push for that amendment. And before we could push for that amendment, I must get the committee approval. And that we have done. And that's why we have initiated a complete overhaul of that act. And we have also repealed it to reenact a new one that is in conformity with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You must see the articles of the agreement. That article of the agreement, the parliament does not have it. And imagine the executive will sign an agreement and ratify such an agreement, and the parliament as a whole, that have a bicameral legislature, including the Senate and the House of Representatives, does not have any atom of knowledge of the items within the articles of the agreement, and the executive is ratifying, and people are clapping hands. I don't think that is completely uncalled for. That's completely in conflict with the culture of democracy. That's completely in conflict with the power as enshrined in our Constitution, subsection 12. And I believe that the executive will learn from this process, that the engagement with all arms of government that ought to, to have a voice with such magnitude of trade agreement should be sought for. The public hearing of the committee has been concluded. We are also exchanging a lot of documents in terms of putting our documents together. Anyone probably you needed further clarifications are given to you. But I can assure you that virtually all the documents have been assembled, and we're analyzing most of these documents to get our report. Sometimes changing the narrative, an outcome is probably, did it change the narrative of doing things? The report also can change an impact, or can bring about an impact into its particular areas you targeted for. To now, I think Nigerians, even when the report is not out, are mindful of the fact when taking loan. There are aspects of the another arms of government that needs to scrutinize those loans, and also must take Nigeria into consideration that Nigerians is not requesting for any further loan that can be able to mortgage the future of our children. I think these are impacts that most of this report goes to solve. Sometimes you do a scrutiny on an agency. You have also put the agency on the toe, and making sure there's a new normal, of doing things. And if you have changed that narrative and to bring about a possible outcome of accountability, one, and to possible outcome of where the masses, the effect, it will affect positively on the masses. It becomes the new normal. It becomes a new narrative of doing things. So most of the outcome you see, most of our report change, it goes a long way even addressing issue of budgeting. The budgeting process ought to change to a positive outcome. And what are those positive outcomes? You will be able to scrutinize the Ministry of Works. That probably their actions on how roads are constructed might be wrong. Why not change a new narrative to do that? It becomes possible. Today, you will see that even the committee, electoral committee of the House, have started job to making sure that before the first quarter of next year, those things are addressed. The probes have been helpful. It keeps the agencies on tool. It makes them not to do the past thinking, of right, do new narratives and change the course. Also, those probes also has also given us an insight on how most of these legislations are also uttered to bring about a better outcome, like this one we are talking about. We have also seen the clock why executive can bypass the National Assembly to go and be signing an agreement up and down without being able to recourse to the House and without also depositing in the depository office of the Attorney General. The Treaty Making Procedure Act is completely in conflict with the Constitution because it came into effect in 1993 and the Constitution came into effect in 1999. So that law is completely inconsistent because at the time the military government enacted that Decree 16 on January 21st, 1993. The Constitution has been suspended in the first place. There was no Constitution in existence. The military were ruling on decree, and decree is completely an alien to issues of democratic culture. I think those are the clear principles and why that law is inconsistent, because there were no legislature, there's no other institution. Executive occupies two powers. They occupy the power of the executive, they occupy the power of the legislature. So they have been ratifying. And that mentality of ratification after signing has continued, without the National Assembly. And the legislature have looked the other way without correcting these issues. The legislature have looked the other way without correcting these issues. It is not by an executive power to ratify, because the Constitution in Section 12 clearly will ratify, we incorporated into our laws the issues that concern financial must be enacted into law. That is even the Treaty Making Procedure Act, subsection 3, section 1, section 3, subsection 1. In a drafting law, it has its own procedure. We've looked at it, we've looked at the areas of conflict, we've done bill analysis to that effect, aligning laws. We've also discovered those key areas that does not agree with the constitutions, and be able to alter them to align with the Constitution, because it must agree with the ground norm. Constitution is the ground norm, is the operational compass. It is a law through which other laws derives its power. So to that extent, the particular decree does not derive such power that it has in the Constitution. I don't think there was an issue when Speaker came in. As the Speaker, who is the presiding officer of the National Assembly, could give a guideline, upon which a better understanding, a better procedure can take place. And to that extent, Speaker himself, who is a fifth-timer, is embodiment of knowledge in terms of the legislature. And so to that extent, and after the sitting with Mr. Speaker, I think we came back, we conducted the committees. The next day we also did, and we were able to get all the necessary materials that are available. And I can tell you, we have analyzed virtually everything now, and because we have been writing, exchanging correspondence, with other agencies. We're coming up with a better report that can affect a complete change of the way we do things. And if there's any infraction in any key areas, we're able to address most of those key infractions. Because one, you must also understand that if there's a corrupted process, it has to be, brought back again, to look into again. I think those are a process. We have looked holistically, virtually everything. Our report will come to that, definitely. We are repealing Treaty Making Procedure Act and reenacting another Treaty Making Procedure Act. When you want to repeal, you are overhauling the entire process because probably the entire process does not agree with the Constitution. Like what I told you, a decree that was enacted in 1993, and the current Fourth Republic came to be in 1999. And to that extent, that decree would not be, because at that time, the military people are also have the power of the legislature and also have the power of the executive. So, in their ways, they normally exercise both functions, and they were unable to separate it completely, even when they have the Supreme Military Council, or the legislative organ of the military government. They couldn't separate it, because when one man occupies both positions, it's like a king, occupying both executive power, judiciary power, and the legislative power. I think that's what our law is all about. So it's a conflict. It does not go along with our 1999 Constitution. You fence many key areas of the Constitution. When a committee is consistent and forthright, you can't be haunted, except probably you are corrupt in your own way. To me, I've always exercised the power of transparency, and I have always carried the press along. You remember when I was also doing the issue of NDDC, I opened up virtually everything, and I agree with the press on resolutions. I agree with the agency on resolutions. So tomorrow, no person say, it was witch hunting us. And that is what is called e-parliament. And e-parliament must be transparent enough in everything, but accountability. I think the fear of being haunted should not be there, because you never mortgage the committee. The character of the committee remains the same.
All right, Nicholas Osai there, member of the House of Representatives from Delta State. He was talking about the Treaty Making Procedure Bill, which he is sponsoring at the National Assembly, so that Nigeria can have a proper procedure of ratifying treaties, international treaties. That is what he has been enlightening Nigerians on.